Welcome back to episode 33 of the Crazy Hockey Dads podcast. The hockey podcast. No. Yes, we're back.
We're back.
But, yeah, we're back. Yeah.
So continue. I keep fucking you up in your tagline.
Yeah, why'd you have to?
I'm gonna do it. Meanwhile, I'm gonna do it every time now. By the way.
Well, listen. at least I'm remembering to do it.
This is true because I do not. You're 1,000% correct.
Because Crazy Hockey Dads podcast is the unfiltered podcast for hockey parents. No politics, no sugarcoating, just real talk for hockey parents in the trenches. Boom.
Trenches. There you go.
Yeah, dude, we're back.
I like it.
Yeah,
we are back.
Yeah.
Episode 33.
33. Welcome one, welcome
Patrick
all.
Ewing action. I like it.
Oh my God, blast from the past, dude.
Patrick Ewing.
Right? Ewing. Wow.
I know, right?
Yeah. Go New York, go New York, go.
There you go.
New York, go New York, go. Anyhow, dude, what an episode we have.
Yes, we have a
today.
Sick interview.
Sick, solid.
Awesome interview.
Yes. Alec Marsh, assistant coach at Hobart. And he just had a tremendous career himself as a youth player. Played D1, played pro over in Europe, and just had a ton of like awesome, insightful things to say. Really, real pleasure to have him on the podcast. So that was awesome. Yeah. Awesome interview coming up for everyone in a few moments. But before we get to that, want to call out our partners at Howie's Hockey.
Howie's Hockey. Crazy 10. Go get your tape, your laces, your gear, your candles, your wax.
All the things.
All the
yellow and blue.
Yeah, the bobbleheads, the Christmas ornaments, I mean, they have so much shit. The tape bags.
They do.
I mean, crazy 10 for 10% off. Howie's Hockey.
Yes,
I always say it's the second best logo in all of youth hockey next to our logo.
Yep. There it is.
Right?
Absolutely.
I just want to call a spade.
They just have like the missing tooth thing, which we might have to get like art graphic designed on ours. Maybe knock one of your teeth out. How's that sound?
Well, listen.
Actually, one of my teeth. My tooth.
I was just gonna say. Technically, you already have that covered, don't you?
I do, but I just have an implant.
Can you pop it out like?
No, not on demand.
You can't do it on demand. You have to
there was a while where I could.
Oh yeah, now it's like cemented in there.
There's a post.
Why don't you tell our audience how you did that, Scott, and how that exactly happened? Let's see what our audience thinks of what you did.
Well, it wasn't me exactly, but it was one fine morning.
Some would say that maybe it wasn't the smartest idea to wear what you were wearing.
Okay, so fine, but
some would say that.
So let's just this is how this whole came together. Okay, Otto.
When I say some, I mean most.
Listen, I play men's with guys that just wear visors. Not
sure
a lot,
you do.
but in any event. So a stick and puck is a thing that I learned about when Otto started playing hockey, and it was like COVID time, whatever, and we moved to New Jersey and. Otto's like, I want to go on the ice, and I learned about stick and puck, and then I read that I need to have equipment. So I got equipment just to go out there with him. I got a helmet, bucket, no visor, no nothing. I'm there with like a 6 or 5 year old, whatever he was at the time.
Right.
And then when we moved to Jersey, I was like, oh, dude, I should start playing. It's been years since I played. So I started playing men's league. But I never played at a level where I could wear a visor. I always wore a full cage, and I had a bucket with nothing on it. So I'm like, oh, I'll just get a visor. It's non-checking, whatever. So I'm just wearing a visor. And one morning at a pickup game, it starts at like 6 a.m. Sure enough, I was driving the net, and the winger centered it, and it went off of one of the defenseman's sticks, and it popped up and hit me right in the tooth.
Right in the chiclet.
Right in the chiclet. Yeah, I got lucky though, and I'll say this because it only hit one tooth. It didn't split my lip.
Nope.
So it could have been multiple teeth and a bloody mess. It was like one broken tooth that fractured in 2 different directions, and it was like early in the morning. I had to deal with that until I could get to a dentist later that day, and thousands of dollars and months later, I have a fake front tooth.
And that's how you got the Michael Strahan look.
Dude, it was so not worth it. I can say that wholeheartedly. If I knew then what I know now, I would have never played men's without a full cage.
There you go. And I'm assuming you have not played without a full cage since.
No, of
Yeah.
course not. No,
So,
dude, forget it. No,
I'm
so not
assuming
worth it.
most dudes wear full cages or the bubble or something like that,
Most
right?
occasionally you're gonna have a guy that just wears the bucket, no nothing.
Right. Old school
Um,
dude?
yeah, mostly there's a few like younger guys that are like whatever, but no, yeah, mostly old or whatever. But yeah, so
And
that sucked. That sucked big one.
anybody rock the Jofa, the old Jofas?
Ooh, that's a good one. No, no,
Nobody?
no, no. I take that back. Yes,
Is there?
yes, there's one.
Yeah.
One. Yep. And that's
Okay.
it's just such a strange looking helmet.
Yeah.
It's
I
you know,
suppose it's
it's
better than the leather back in the day, but not much.
either way, I mean it's just like it's interesting looking.
Yes,
But
it is. That is well said. Yeah.
anyhow, getting back to our partners and my
Yes.
fake tooth. Okay,
Yes.
so ProStride, Angelo Circe, CHD10, use that to get your discount off of power skating clinics, camps, etc. Angelo Circe and Company, can't speak highly enough about them.
New Jersey Devils trust them. You should too.
That's it. So check them
Angelo's
out.
great.
ProStride, Elite Skating, and then we've got Athletic Performance Insight (API). Again, video analytics and tagging for all levels of youth hockey up to college. Just got off a call with Eric. It looks like our team is going to move forward with
Oh,
using
you
it for
are.
video review. It
Oh,
looks like it.
nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
no, it was great having.
Good,
He went
man.
over the system. So anyone who's
Oh, you guys did
interested,
like a demo with him? You guys did like a
yeah,
call with him?
parents had questions,
Oh, very good.
so we had a
Nice.
demo with him last night,
Oh, great.
and it was great. It's really robust, man. That
Yeah, it
and look,
is.
not
His
to say
software is impressive.
it is, and
Yeah.
not that others aren't, but
Right.
he's done a really great job, and it's affordable and it's user friendly and all
Yeah.
that stuff. So, Athletic Performance Insight API, use their request form to get a demo. They'll tag a game for free. New users will get 10% off their season subscription.
$100 value.
There it is, and those are our partners.
Nice. Any
Yeah,
new
man.
updates geography wise? I
Oh,
mean,
good.
we keep adding
Mm.
like regions.
Yeah, yep, in other, yes, we have there are a few. I don't, off the top of my head, I don't remember them all, but like in Germany, we picked up like
Yeah.
Berlin, Prague, and
In Czech, but
Czechia.
yeah. I
I think
saw
if
that.
you
We
play another place in
keep adding
Finland.
Sweden and Finland. Yeah.
Yeah, so
I
it's
keep
growing,
noticing that.
man. It's growing. So
Yeah, that's
anyone
great.
that's listening,
Yeah.
new listeners, welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for checking us out and being a part of this journey with us.
Yeah.
And also, we haven't read any write-ins. We should do that next episode. I just didn't
We
have it
can.
teed up, but
Yeah.
please write in. We've got some great stories. Just hearing from people out there. Great to learn about other parts of the country, other parts of the world, just
How
kind
youth
of what's
hockey
going
works
on.
out there.
Yeah, so please write us. Love to hear from
Yeah.
you. But
Yeah,
yeah,
we'll
man.
read them next time. That's a good idea, actually.
Yeah, I just don't have it teed up for today.
No,
I was
that's okay.
focusing on
On our interview.
getting
Yeah.
the interview. Yeah, 100%.
Yes. Sick interview.
But yeah, man, how was your weekend? How was your hockeying weekend?
My hockeying weekend was good. We had a game Saturday, game Sunday. We did everything in our power to lose on Saturday.
That is not a prescription for
no,
I don't
not
know.
good results. Yeah, for W's.
Good results.
Yeah, for W's.
Right.
Yeah, no, we you know, when you get out of those games, which I'm sure all parents and players know exactly what I'm talking about. We literally walked out of the rink and we were like, I don't know how we just won that game. Thank God we did. Because we should not have.
Right.
Like our goalie made a save, like point blank, that he should not have saved.
Saving. Right.
No business. Like, those are, how like goalies are supposed to save the ones they're supposed to save. And if they save a puck they're not supposed to save, just kind of like an extra added bonus. Right.
Right. Well, that's
this
like,
was,
yeah.
Yeah, this was one of those. Like, this was a puck he was not supposed to save. And I don't know how he did it, but he stuck his glove out. I don't remember if it was in the first or second period, but this puck should have been in the back of the net.
And would that have been a difference maker for the game?
Oh, 100%. We absolutely, we won by one goal. We had no business winning that. We got outshot. The goalie stood on his head. For the entire weekend, by the way, our goalies won us both games. If
That
we didn't have the 2 goalies that we have, we would have
amazing.
had a rough weekend.
All
Yeah.
right. All
Yeah.
right.
Our
Go
our goalie
goalies.
our goalie Sunday we were up 5-1. And they kind of our kids took their foot off the gas pedal on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And they came cranking back, and our goalie made a save with like under 30 seconds left. He stopped the initial shot, and the rebound that he saved was again like not supposed to save, right?
Right.
So he saves the rebound, and then the puck got dropped, and a shot with 1 second left kind of like winged the goalie in the shoulder. Again, another big save. So
Yeah.
I give a lot of credit to our goalies this weekend. Both kids played what they stood on their heads. Both kids.
That's awesome. Well, listen, and you know what? It's a team game, and there's going to be games where that's going to be the difference maker.
That's
true.
true.
So
no, it was huge, man. I said
on them.
Thank God for our goalies this weekend. Both kids.
Awesome.
Played great. Shout out both of our goalies because you guys really both played great.
That's what's up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good.
So it was good. Dom played better, right? We talked a lot about effort with Alec Marsh in our interview. He played better than he did the previous weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was better Saturday, and it was even better on Sunday.
Good.
Better. So incrementally better. Listen, he still had, 3 points. He had a goal on Saturday and 2 on Sunday, although one didn't get registered to him. They gave it to another kid who wasn't even on the ice. But
How about
that? I mean, listen, I will say this though. Our refs for that game were wonderful. Like,
that's great.
2 refs, when you appreciate good refing,
Sure.
you don't see it much in our game.
I don't know if that's true.
Listen, I'm obviously being sarcastic, but you know what I'm saying. It's hard to find good refs
you can have
at the youth level, right?
Sure.
These guys were both very good, so I was surprised that they botched the scoring as much as they did. But they were phenomenal during the game. They really were.
That's great. Well, that's probably the most important part, right?
Yeah, of course. Keep the kids safe, call a fair game. So it was great,
Sure.
man. Yeah, it was a good hockey weekend.
Awesome.
Yeah, our kids were like 6-1, something like that. So
better than our kids.
Yeah. What happened with you guys?
We took two L's this weekend. 2 big L's. And
were the teams really good?
So the first game we had played a AAA team.
Mm-hmm.
We're in the AHF, they're in the THF.
Okay.
They did a number on us. Although I will say this though.
Big difference in skill level between the two? Was it skating?
Kind
was it stick handling? Was it positioning?
Everything. So Otto had played that team last year when he was down with the Wolfpack Tier 1.
AAA, right.
AAA, and his team last year beat up on this team.
Okay.
And then I actually had a goal in that game last year. It was a nice goal, actually. Anyway,
nice.
yeah. But they had our number. Look, they are just used to playing a faster game. They're used to moving the puck a bit more than our kids, or a lot more. So even though that team, their better players were better than our better players, had a little bit more depth. Although, for a AAA team, there was a bit of a cliff for them. So when they're playing some heavier duty AAA teams, I can't imagine
they run into a problem.
They definitely run into a problem
because depth issue. Is that what you're trying to
but even their top guys are they're good. I know what you mean. But they're just not a high end AAA team. But they're certainly better than our team. And like you mentioned, effort before. I think part of it can be frustrating for kids when they're outmatched, or it's just not going in their direction. And to be kind of relentless and gritty, it takes I think for the younger kids, it takes a different kind of kid that's just always just super competitive. Otto had some chances, didn't bury, which could have made a difference in the momentum at some points, but ultimately the game was, I don't think, ever going to be won by us. So that wasn't great.
All right.
And then, and for me as a parent, being out there and so we had played that team last year and beat up on them. And then it's a different, it's just different this year. But in my mind, I'm I don't know. I had a rough time kind of watching that just not go well.
Right.
And I actually I stepped out of the rink for a second. I had to get
Because of
my
Otto's
head
play
together.
or just because of the overall play?
It was a combination. It was a
Okay.
combination. And I think that I don't want to say I was being unfair because I think at times like the effort just wasn't there and it was noticeable and there was just some like
Okay.
I don't know some decisions that I think that we would have been past at this point. And I'm talking about Otto, not necessarily the team. I don't know all the kids all that well,
Mhm.
but just some things I'm just like I think we can do better. I know we can do better, and just in a
Right.
game where we're kind of getting like outmatched to also have like a bunch of poor decisions kind of on top of it was just like ugh. But
Yeah.
in any event, that game
Got it.
came and went, and then we were hopeful on Sunday we'd rebound with a W. I was with Noah again for soccer, and Orly took him
To his
down
game. Yeah.
to his game, and it wasn't long before they were down 3-0.
Yikes. Okay.
Yeah, so that didn't get off to a great start, and
Right.
then
Goalie get pulled?
no, no, not
Okay.
after that. No, no.
Okay.
But then they clawed back. They clawed back to they were down at one point. I think they were down ultimately 5-0
Oh.
at like some point in the second period, and then they
Oh,
clawed
okay.
back to they were down 5-4.
Oh, so they scored like 4 unanswered. Nice.
And then Otto again. He was like it was ish breakaway,
Mhm.
and forehand backhand didn't get it through the 5 hole,
Mm.
and then they ended up losing 8-4.
Oh, so it got away from you guys after that.
Yeah, and it's a whole bunch of things. Like, look, ultimately, I
Yeah.
think one of the things that this team will, I'm hopeful for their team
Mhm.
because they do have some good players on the team,
Yeah.
and they've
No, I know you guys do.
demonstrated that. It's just I think it's a matter of playing together more and getting familiar with systems and playing as a team. Like I said, this team has got like kids
Still
from
early.
7 different organizations
Yeah.
last season, so
Still early in the season too.
I don't even know if they juggled the lines a little bit. So there's
Yeah, we're
in
doing
any
that
event,
often.
it was
Yeah,
not
I got you.
an awesome weekend, but
All right, listen.
is what it is, and on to the next,
That is
and
true.
we
All right.
will see what next weekend brings. But before we get there, we have a tremendous interview
We have an
with Alec
awesome
Marsh.
interview. Yes.
So what do you think?
Assistant coach, Hobart College up in Geneva, New York.
Yeah,
Going for a 4-peat.
4 Pete, and
Four.
what's the what I forget what's the name of the championship or the what did they win? What's the name of it?
I actually don't know. I'm not
No, we
sure
should
what it
look it
is.
up.
Yeah, we should look it up. It's obviously the Division 3, college ice hockey championship, right? I haven't actually looked it up. Can you look it up for me?
Yeah,
But yeah, I know he
I need to say
was
you're the one that I need to tell to look things up. Like on Rogan, he was like, Jamie, pull up that video.
because my name's Jamie. Yeah, his Jamie does look
Yes,
stuff
but
up.
you
You're
would
not wrong.
tell me to
But
pull
you're
up videos.
but you're better at that stuff than I am.
Oh, okay. That's a great way to like psychologize me into doing
Listen,
the grunt work.
listen, it's not psychology. It's literally just it's facts.
Okay, fine. If you put it that way, I'll
Yeah, I
be
mean,
more than happy to do your bidding, sir.
you just are better at it. Period. End of story.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, but no, but yeah. So Alec was hired as the assistant coach at Hobart. The assistant that was there that vacated the spot that he now filled um, is on a D1 bench. If I'm not mistaken, the last four, 3 or 4 assistants are all on D1 benches.
Mm,
So I've said it for years. Alec will be on a D1 bench one day. There's no doubt in my mind. That's where he belongs. He is a very impressive young man. Um, he's a very impressive hockey mind. Um, as a matter of fact, I remember, and I didn't know he was such a hockey mind. So he was the hockey director for the X Hockey Academy where Dominic
mm,
went to school.
right.
Okay. So he ran the whole show. And not only did he coach, Bryce Salvador's '09 team, but he was the director of the X Hockey Academy. So he was
Got it.
in control of on ice, off ice development for our kids who went to the X Hockey Academy, which is an ice hockey school in New Jersey, for those of you who don't know. Um, so I remember we were up in Buffalo a couple of years ago. So we were the 2012, AAA team, and he was '09 AAA. And we were both up in Buffalo to tournament, and he came by to watch one of our games. and we're playing some Canadian team. I don't remember who it was, but he's standing next to me watching the game, and I'm listening to him talk, and I'm listening to him kind of just. He was just like talking about what was happening on the ice,
Yeah.
right? And I remember saying to myself, like, I don't fucking see any of that shit. Like he was seeing shit that I was like, what, like,
Are we watching the
what,
same game?
what am I not seeing? That like, I didn't see any of what he was saying,
Can I
and
borrow your glasses?
like, what the fuck, dude?
Right.
Like, clearly his hockey mind works differently than clearly mine.
Than your pickleball mind.
Seriously. I mean, I'm like, like a piker compared. It's like it's so like he has a. It's the first time I ever really heard him like watch a game and almost like dissect
like
it.
articulate,
Like,
yeah.
yeah, it was crazy, Scott. So I always knew that he would be on a D1 bench, one day, and I'm thrilled for him for this opportunity for him to go coach, up at Hobart. I'm really thrilled for him because he's going to be. There's no doubt in my mind that he'll be on a D1 bench one day.
Yeah.
He's a special human being, comes from a really cool family. His mom is one of my favorite people. Alec's one of my favorite people in all of youth hockey by far. I hope everybody enjoys the interview because he is a very insightful young man, almost like wiser beyond his years. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like that type of a guy.
Yeah.
He just comes off differently than people his age, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I pulled it up and because I thought he said something in the interview like there was a name for like the trophy or whatever, but it's they won the 2025 NCAA Division III Men's Ice Hockey Championship for the third straight season, defeating Utica 2-1 in overtime last year.
Yep. Right. So which I didn't know is they're going for a 4-peat now. Which
going for a 4-peat. The Statesman. Hobart Statesman.
Yes, yeah. So
let's go Hobart.
Yeah, listen, my dad is an alumni at Hobart.
That's
so
true. All right, yeah.
And I've actually never been up there, and this is like
well, you will now.
A no-brainer reason for me to go up there.
No doubt.
And watch a game and hang out up there. So
all right. So what do you say we kick it over?
Yeah, let's do it. I love it.
All right.
Yep. See you guys on the other side.
Let's go. Enjoy the interview, everyone.
Here we go. All right, so we are here with one of my favorite people in the youth hockey space, Alec Marsh, who is the newly hired assistant coach at Hobart College up in Geneva, New York. Alec, man, thanks so much for jumping on. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
So, Alec, do me a favor, kind of get into your youth hockey career, up until kind of, through pro and what you did after that. You kind of tell our audience kind of like where you started and where you are now.
Yeah, I played for the Rockets youth program for Mites. I actually started playing in-house, local, just, learning the game, and grew up, I think, started skating at like 3 years old or 4 years old. Pretty traditional in that way. And then from there, I played for the Rockets for a couple of years, and then I went to the Mercer Chiefs for a year. And then I was at the Colonials for midget. And then I went to play Rockets again for junior B when I was around 15. So we had it was a unique situation there. Like we were like a U18 team playing in a junior league. But it was a lot of good, like local guys kind of like preparing, like not local, I'd say like some New York guys and PA guys, but kind of preparing guys for that next step. So we were younger and getting them acclimated with the junior style, which was great. And then from there, I committed to Penn State from there. At 15, which was awesome. And then I went and played in the USHL in Cedar Rapids for 3 years. I finished in I finished in Fargo. My last year I went to Sioux Falls and then finished there in Fargo. And then, that was a good time. And then I went to Penn State there when I was 19. New program, a couple years started, which was great. And then I was there for 4 years. Fortunate enough, we won a Big Ten championship my sophomore year, which is great.
Awesome.
Kind of, the guys that were there in those 4 years or, the 4 years prior or 2 years prior, like kind of pioneered to what it is now, which is everyone kind of knows it. Oh, yeah. Which, really, really honored to be able to do that. And then I played in the East Coast League and in the Southern Pro League. And then COVID happened. I was in South Carolina, went back down to Florida. And then my last year playing, I played over in England in the EIHL in Coventry, which was a really cool experience. I wanted to do one more year in Europe, and I actually really enjoyed it. It was a really fun year over there. It's really growing hockey over there. People don't realize it, but the fans and the locals over there love it. So it's a great place to play.
Nice. That's awesome. And then when you were done with your pro career, kind of how did you get into coaching and stuff like that?
Yeah. So my last year of playing, I kind of knew it was my last year with, I had shoulder surgery the year before when I was in Florida, which was, I played 3 games basically, because it was coming off COVID. So kind of
Right.
sat around on my ass for 2 years, which was tough. And then I knew I wanted to play one year in Europe, which, everyone does. Well, not everybody does, but I suggest anybody that's listening to this that's going through it, I would do it. It's great. Um, it was a great experience, but um, yeah, I went over there, and then when I was over there, I kind of was ready to move on from hockey, but I knew I wanted to stay in it.
Right.
The days kind of get repetitive of going to the rink and practicing, and then you're done at noon every day, and it's kind of a tough lifestyle, I guess. You get kind of caught up in it. We had a lot of breaks during the year too because it was COVID was still going on over there. But Bryce Salvador reached out to me because I used to train at Bridgewater
Mm,
in the gym down there, and we crossed paths a few times, and he had his own fitness center that he started in Scotch Plains that I worked out there a couple years before that, when I was in college still, and asked me if I wanted to kind of take over this like elite '09 team that he had, which I think was like 13U or 12U at that point.
Yeah.
And he said he wanted to kind of take a step back from them and have a new voice come in and a younger guy. And I knew I kind of wanted to get into coaching, and I thought it was a good first step. And it was, I was at the Rockets for the past 3 years. Last year, I got more into the junior realm. I coached midget, I coached junior, I coached the NCDC and the Premier. And then, got a really good opportunity here up in Hobart, and wanted to continue my career. So I moved on up here.
Nice. Nice.
that's
And
amazing. Oh, go ahead,
and
James.
yeah, and I'm just curious before before we get into like the meat and potatoes of everything.
Yeah.
I'm just curious to hear now that you're out of youth hockey. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear what you think the health of the youth hockey space is. And when I say health, I mean like, do you think it's too much of a business now and they're kind of forgetting about the development of the kids? Do you think there's too many levels, too many teams, especially in our area? Like, I'm really curious to hear your take on the landscape because we talk about it a lot on our
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah. I think it's changed so much from when I played. I think like, with the fact that there's so many tier 1 charters now locally, there's so many programs locally. It has changed, and I don't know if it's changed more in like the business aspect. If it is, it's just like the premier status.
Hmm.
I think so many people chase it that they want to play on the best team, and I don't ever always think that's the right move. I've had kids in the past and families that I've talked to and just said like, you need to go play at a team where you're going to be the best player, and it's going to help your son develop better. And I think there's a lot of people that don't do that. I think that the way it's going now, I think there's just too many tier 1 programs. There's too many programs in general. I think hockey is a very unique skill set, and to be very, very elite at it, there's only a small few. And I think that, with how many programs there really are, there's not a lot of separation anymore.
Mm,
I
Yeah.
think a lot of people kind of just bounce around because they can, because there's no real rules against it anymore. Where back when I played, it was, you can only go two guys to a team. Now, like that's kind of like ostracized. It's an asterisk next to it.
Yes, there is.
There's a big asterisk next to it. But I think everyone kind of chases it, where it's not so much about what's right, but what's right for your kid and what's right for your family. I think now it's just all about how many games are you playing and what teams are you playing, and I don't necessarily agree with it. I think less is best. I think the training and getting away from it is pretty important too. I don't really see the need for these guys to be doing. These kids are playing 100 games a year when you got guys on national TV playing 80.
It's
right.
crazy.
It's kind of backwards in that sense, but yeah, it's definitely a lot different, in my opinion.
Wow.
Yeah.
So just circling back to like you when you got started, were you always a AAA player? Did you bounce between tier one, tier two? Like what was that like for you? And to kind of piggyback off of that, like at what point did you start to really take it seriously?
Yeah. I don't think I made my mite team my first year. I have a really good memory, and I'm pretty sure I didn't make it. Um, and I think I played like might B. Not that mites really matters, but
Right.
to some people nowadays it does. But
Yes, that's
uh,
true.
That's
yeah.
true.
But no, I think the biggest steps I think I took were um, I played tier 1 my whole life. The biggest steps I think was like my like 13s, 12 to 15 age, 15, 16 age, those puberty years.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think those really start to change players and kids. And I have this conversation with families and stuff all the time. Like, once a kid goes to high school, everything changes. Once they get into that realm where they're the youngest of the group, and girls get involved, and it's a
Yep.
lot different landscape, and you really start to separate yourself. And I was really dedicated to it. I spent the summers training, and you give a lot with the sport, and you miss out on a lot, but if you're doing it for the right reasons and you enjoy it, it's worth it, in my eyes. So
Yeah. So as you were playing tier one, your entire career, what type of like out of the normal like practices and games like were you doing between skills coaches, like extra clinics? Like were you always trying to get on the ice? Was this or this was something like you would take your summers off? Like what was that like for you in terms of like all like the quote unquote extras that people are seeking out like regularly?
yeah, I mean, I love this because I say this, and I think Jamie probably knows because he's talked to Bryce before. But like, there's nobody wants to be an athlete anymore, which I think is kind of crazy. And I say that because a lot of kids dedicate this full year round. I wasn't one of those kids. A lot of my buddies who were really good players also weren't one of those kids.
Interesting.
I played lacrosse in the off season. Really stepped away from it. Maybe played a tournament or two. I think once you get to that 16, 17 year, that's kind of when you got to kind of dial it into one sport.
Mm,
And that sport doesn't need to be year round. Spend your summers away from the rink, like gets you a little bit of hunger wanting to come back. And that was kind of something I did. I would take a break from it. I'd still shoot pucks and train, and, I just wouldn't be on the ice as much.
right.
I spent a lot of my summers when I was playing lacrosse, and my training honestly was like putting rollerblades on, and I'd roller rink down the street, and I'd go down there and I'd play for 5-7 hours and have some fun with that. And that's like the best way, and those were always the good times.
Yeah.
uh, but like I would do that more than probably anything else. I wasn't going to skill sessions. I wasn't doing all that. And also it's a lot different nowadays than it was
Interesting.
back then. There's not as many guys that want to give back and run it and do that kind of stuff, which I think is great. I think that's why you see the game so much better now than it used to be.
Mhm.
You just have so many guys who played at such high levels that want to give back to the game and stay involved. And I think that's why, the game has gotten better.
That
Oh,
makes a
that's
lot of
interesting
sense.
because all the skills coaches that are out there now
Yeah,
doing
I
it.
mean, like, you've worked with Top Line before, and you've worked with
Yeah.
those guys, and like, Boo and Selman were hell of hockey players, and
Yeah.
played against them in college, and they were great players. And they have some other guys that are there that Sam Sternshine, who I played with, who was my stallmate in at Penn State, and he's a hell of a hockey player, and he's getting involved now. And there's a lot of guys that are doing that, which I think is really great. There some people say there's probably too much now, but there's a market for it. So I think, why not?
Yeah.
There is a market for it. Isn't that
Yeah.
true?
Yeah.
So another question, just about like, what were your parents like growing up? Were they like really competitive? Were they pushing you to always like be a top athlete? Like, what was that like for you? And like, even if you could dive into, if you remember, like even the car rides home, like after a
Yeah.
good game or a bad game.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it was a competitive household. It was, my dad was hard, um, stern,
Mm,
but it was great. It was for the betterment. And I think, a lot of that stuff you don't realize until you kind of get older,
Yeah.
and you start seeing it firsthand. But yeah, like, I would know when I played bad, and I would know when I played good. the
He would
player
tell
knows,
you,
the
made sure
parent
you
knows
knew.
it, the player knows it.
Yeah.
There was things that I used to do. I remember, when I was younger, where it'd be like, I think my mom did this, and it was like we put up a poster board on like a refrigerator, and it was like keeping track of like shots and goals and like all those little things, and like adding stickers to it, and like like keeping you kind of engaged in it all the time.
Huh.
Which I thought was really good. And like
That's cool.
in the garage, I'd shoot pucks and I'd keep tallies on the wall. And I think the one summer I needed a new computer. I needed a computer for school, for going into my freshman year, and it was my dad like made a deal with me. And Jamie's not afraid of this, but you shoot, I don't remember, it was like 25,000 pucks or 50,000 pucks or something insane. And I'm sitting out there shooting 1,000 pucks, and it just gets to the point where we're just flipping it at the net and counting it. But nobody's watching, so it is what it is. But
Yeah.
I keep tallies of that, and and those aspects. And then I always did the same thing when I played in junior, and when I first moved away from home, and when I played in college, and when I played in pro. Like I always call my parents after every single game. I take a good 10 minutes right after I walk out of the rink, and always call them, and because they watched everything. A little bit different in England, obviously, because the time change and everything like that. But they would let me know. My dad would let me know if I played good or if I played bad, or most of the time it's just about my work ethic more than anything. It's not about scoring. It's just about competing.
Yeah.
It gets harder and harder to score as you get higher levels. I would say that most of it was just about work ethic and competing.
Effort level and stuff like that.
Effort level,
right?
yeah. Because I mean, you can't fake effort. And nobody knows it better than the person that's watched you every day since you put the skates on for the first time. So, you get older though, and you realize that you might know a little bit more because you actually played than your parents do. But
Right.
it's good to hear from them, because they'll tell you the most honest about it. So
Well, that's James. Sorry, I just wanted
No,
to
go
ask you
ahead.
another question. But
Go ahead.
so we talk about the effort,
All the time.
all the time,
All
and
the
it's
yeah,
time.
not about necessarily, like you said, like the
It's not
stat.
about points and
It's
stuff.
about your effort, and
yeah.
you can come down on your kid for effort, fine, but like in your opinion, what's a good way about like how to go about that with a kid? Now, like my kid's a 2014, he's 10
Mhm.
going, he's almost 11. Jamie's kid's 13, so like younger kids, not necessarily talking about high school age yet, but like for parents of younger kids and even like up to high school, like what would you say is a healthy way to go about having that conversation? And, obviously everyone's got a different brand of what that's going to look like. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But, just from your own personal experience, like what do you think is a good way of communicating when a kid, like their effort sucks? Is it just
Um,
that, like, call it what it is, dude, that sucked? Or,
You know what? Like, honestly, I think it was different for me, like as a coach, because I'm younger in that aspect of it, so I can kind of be a little bit more familiar with the way I talk to them, because I kind of understand the way that kids operate nowadays, and
Mm,
it's a little bit different. Um, but like honestly, like the one thing that I always tell like the teams I've coached, and I've coached 12-year-olds, and I've coached 20-year-olds, and now I'm coaching 24-year-olds. Um, the biggest, like the one thing I always say is like you have to like enjoy the thrill of competition. Now, like that's not something that you really say to a 2014, because they have no idea what that means. Um, but what I would say to them is like, you break the game up into a bunch of small battles. And I like learned this when I was like a mite, and the game's made up of, a bunch of one-on-one battles. And you just want to win as many one-on-ones as you can. Whether that's, winning a loose puck, or, if it's a pile in a corner, coming out with it first, beating a guy one-on-one wide, beating a guy, putting him on YouTube, whatever you want to call it. But the way I kind of looked at it was, like you just want to try to win as many one-on-ones as you can. Because then you start feeling confident in yourself, and the one-on-ones aren't scoring goals against the goalie. The one-on-ones are, like I said, like winning a small battle, or getting a
right,
puck out through a defenseman, or making a nice first pass through a guy's feet or around a guy.
yeah,
Like the more you can kind of do those little things, then everything kind of gets involved. And one thing for me that was like funnier as like I was a kid growing up is like I needed to get rocked every once in a while to like wake up, take a big hit, like, and
interesting.
like engaged. Like some kids it takes a little bit more to get engaged. But if you can find them, like the smaller things, if you can really like simplify it as much as you can, then they're like, oh, okay, like that makes sense. Like that's more fun. Like you just got to kind of keep it fun with them and challenge them a little bit.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It's funny, we're talking about effort now, and we're talking about like your dad making deals with you, right?
Yeah.
So Nancy always tells me, she's like, Jamie, it's not a good idea. Don't make a deal with him, because if it doesn't work out, he's going to be bent out of shape.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we get out of the car today, and he goes, and he's wanted this mountain bike for a while now, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he's like, hey dad, he's like, how about this? Because first he asked me for like little jobs around the house. He's like, how much are you gonna pay me? I'm like, I'll give you like $20 an hour. So he starts adding it
Yeah.
up. He's like, it's gonna take me forever to get this mountain
Yep.
bike.
Well,
So-
welcome to the real world.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So he
Yeah.
gets out of the car and he goes, I have a better idea, Dad. He goes, how about the percentage of effort that I give this weekend, you put that percentage toward my mountain bike? That's what he says to me today. And I'm thinking
way to do
about
it.
right? I'm thinking about it, I'm like, it's not the worst idea. Like,
Yeah, that's one way to do it. That's one way to do it. Yeah, I mean, I like the one story my dad has told probably a million times. Like I wanted to sleep over at a buddy's house, and this was when I was like 13 or 12. I wanted to sleep over at a kid on my team's house, and we would do our testing when we were back then was like running miles, and like you had to run like a sub 30 mile. And then we did 3 mile testing with like weight vests on. And like, that was kind of like what we did. We did like long distance running. I know that's kind of like fallen out of the game. Everything's, short intervals and stuff like that. But, we used to run off across anyway. So I was a pretty good runner. And I, kept asking if I could sleep over. He's like, you got to run in the morning. Like we would go to the track on Saturday mornings, and like I'd go run Saturday mornings, and do the bleachers and stuff like that. And, he was like, all right, like, I'll see you in like 30 minutes. So he drives up to my buddy's house. I was in Morristown. And he drives up there and he picks me up and he says, like, get in the car. And I was like, all right. So like I get in the car, and he's like, he drives me a mile down the road, exactly a mile. And he says, get out.
he made you run.
And he said, you gotta be back at the house by like whatever we're supposed to get it under 6:15, 6:30, whatever it may be.
That's
and
fantastic.
he drove back and he waited at the kid's driveway, and he was like, they're like, where is he? And I was like, you'll see. And like, and I was like sprinting over the top of the hill, like running down it. It's the fastest mile I ever probably ran in my life. But yeah, like that was the type of stuff that,
That's a great move by your dad.
Yeah. He'll love that story. He listens to this, he'll be smiling in your ear about that. But yeah, like that's just like, the discipline side of it as well. But yeah, I mean, that's an all-time classic Greg Marsh story.
Now, listen, I give a lot of, I've never, I know you listen, your mother's one of my favorite people. You know that, but I've never met your dad, but I've heard stories. That's awesome, by the way.
Yes.
I have never heard that story. Shockingly, I've never heard it.
He used to race guys on our team. Like he would always, guys would be like, I'm faster than you. And I'd be like, man, I'm telling you, you guys are not faster than him. Like, they're like, no, like, let's go. Like, let's race. And like, we would do like sprints outside before practice and stuff. And I was like, I'm telling you guys, like, you're not faster than him. And he'd blow guys out of the water. Like, yeah, he's quick. Not anymore, but he's quick.
Now, your uncle played too? It was your uncle or your dad? Remind me.
My dad played high school, I believe, and they played men's league together, him and my uncle. And my dad hasn't played in a couple years though. And then my uncle played high school hockey in Bridgewater. He played a little bit of travel growing up, but he was a football guy.
Okay.
Yeah, he was a football guy. So, but yeah, that's how I got into it. They both got me into it when I was young. So, I used to shoot pucks in the basement and before it was done and everything like that.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's
Love
awesome. So you mentioned also part of what you've been doing obviously is recruiting.
Yep.
And I'm assuming you did the same when you were in the youth space. When you're recruiting and looking to bring players, to your team, like what are some of like the key attributes you're looking at? Is there anything in particular that you're looking at that maybe, I don't know, that is more important to you that maybe isn't important to other coaches? We're just trying to give our listeners like a sense for like when their kids go into tryouts or, during the course of the season, like what is it that you're really like zeroing in on?
Big thing for me, and a lot of coaches are kind of the same way, but it's kind of what you do. Like obviously the simple things are, how many plays you're making when you're out there, how many chances you're creating, the skill stuff. It's getting thinner and thinner because everyone is so good. But really like the kind of things that separate guys are just like the little details and like, stopping on pucks and, second efforts and, like what kind of happens after you make a mistake or what kind of happens, after a bad shift. Those are pretty big things in my opinion. No one's playing perfect games. It's not realistic. I can't say I've ever done it. Nobody can say they've really ever done it.
Sure.
Um, but it's really the things you do away from the puck and the minor details of the game are really important.
Yeah.
Stops and starts, stick on puck, finishing your checks, winning your races, touching first on pucks is really important as well. But those little things really matter. And then, if you can score goals, you score goals. I'd say the biggest thing for for kids that are listening or parents or whatever that are preaching to their kids, like, don't go in tryouts and try to be somebody that you're not. Don't go if you're a goal scorer, like, make sure you're shooting the puck in the net. Like, play to your strengths as much as you can, because I think that kind of goes out the window. So many players are trying to perform to what an ideal model is.
Mm.
The better you play to your strengths, the better you are. When you start getting out of your comfort zone for a tryout, it's when things go south. So, do what you do better than anybody else.
Because there are
Yeah.
roles. I mean, there's roles that
Yeah.
people play, especially when you
Oh
get to
yeah.
the upper ages, right? Like you said
Yeah.
before, not everybody puts a puck in the net, especially as they
No.
get older.
No. I mean, it's like colleges will recruit guys that fill roles.
Right.
It's hard to replace, a 50 goal scorer every year. It's not realistic. Those don't happen very often. So, can we get, two guys that play the right way and, score 20, or score 15?
Right.
It's more of that, I would say, than it's just, trying to go outside the box on everything.
And as far as the roles, like at what age would you say that those really start to become clear to players, and when should they really start kind of, dialing in on those? Maybe like if you're, I don't know, more of a physical guy, right? Maybe
Yeah.
you're, like when you're going to focus more on perfecting those parts of your game, and worrying less about some of the skills that are not your strengths.
I would say, like, being role defined, I think you really start to see it at the junior level.
Okay.
I think that's really when you first see it. It's different in college, because to really say guys are role defined in college, like, it is there. But hockey gets so structured at that age and at that point, that, like, everyone is kind of, playing in it. And like, it's really hard to find guys that can play 1 through 12, which is, top six role and a bottom six role. Like, those guys
Right.
are really, really special. And those are guys that we look for here. But I'd say the junior level is when you really start to see guys really, like, solidify what type of players they are, because when colleges come to watch them, like, they're looking for those pieces. Like, if a guy's a really good penalty killer, a guy's a really good special player on the power play, a guy's a guy that can go out there and, win faceoffs. Like, that's an underrated skill that, a lot of people probably that are minor hockey don't really think about.
Sure.
My senior year, we recruited the number one faceoff guy. We were one of the worst teams in the Big Ten, I think, for faceoff percentage. So we went out and we got a transfer student from Merrimack, who was my roommate, and he was the number one faceoff guy in college hockey that year.
Wow.
So there's roles that need to be filled, and that's kind of the age, I think, that it kind of starts filling it.
Sure.
And so would you do kids go right into college now, or they have to play juniors now, Alec? And then
Yeah, I mean,
Division three, Division one, does it matter? Or is
yeah, I mean, like, there was when I played a little bit, there was some guys from Minnesota high school that would come straight out, or maybe there were some guys that PG'd at prep, that would go straight to college. Now, with the rule changes with the CHL and all of that stuff that's changed, everyone will be playing junior hockey before they're playing college.
so you're going to
Kids.
get those 21-year-old freshmen
Yeah,
again?
I
Same
mean,
idea.
you're still going to get the older guys, and
Yeah,
like, we're recruiting those 20-year-olds here, and colleges
I
are still
figured.
recruiting those 20-year-olds everywhere. I think now you're seeing, because it's the first year, everyone's in a sprint that they need to be engineers at 15, 16 years old. Like, you don't need to be engineers at 15, 16 years old. Like, you're maybe not physically developed already yet for 16,
Sure.
old. I played with guys who, came in at 20 years old, and those guys played at the NHL. Like, it's when you're ready. It's not always, you can push the pace as much as you want, but you might not be ready physically. You might not be ready mentally. But
Right.
it's everyone's playing juniors now for the most part, I'd say.
Right. Everybody's path is different. It really
Yeah,
is.
everyone's path is completely different.
There's no, like, like cookie cutter way, to get where you
No,
want to get, right?
no, and I think that's the other thing too, is that, like, so many people are always like, well, he's there at 16, or he's there at 18, and, like, that's where my kid should be at that age. And it's like, not really. Like, it's
Yeah.
it's why you got 4 years of juniors. Like, like if some guys need it, I played three. A lot of guys played three that I played with that are playing in the National League. So, it's everyone's different.
What would you have done differently throughout your like high school, junior, college career if you had to do it all over again? I'm just curious since we're on that kind of that age bracket.
Yeah. I think I think I had a long junior career. I think I didn't need to go out there at 16 years old.
Right.
Not that it was the right or the wrong move. It's great to practice against better players, and there's something to be said for that and the off ice, and you're competing against 19, 20-year-olds every single day, which I think is really good. And back then the league was a lot older.
Right.
You started to see that turn as like the third year I was there, where it started to get a little bit younger, where those young guys were really good.
Right.
Um, I think maybe I could have probably stayed home and played another year of junior at home. I played junior A at home and then came in and played a regular role. But I mean, you never know. Like if I did that, maybe I would have not played a regular role. Maybe I would have to put my time in, or vice versa.
Right.
Uh, I it's tough to tell. Like I thought I thought it was fast, but I thought I was ready. At 16, and they took me because they thought I was ready. So, maybe that could have been different. But other than that, like, I don't
Right.
look back at it like that.
That's right. You left the house at 16. I
Yeah,
forgot
I mean
about that.
that's the other thing too, is that like, are you mentally mature enough to be on your own at that age? Like, was I? I don't know. Maybe.
My
Um,
kid's not gonna be.
yeah, like maybe I was like I had great billets. I had a great roommate who actually ran into this weekend.
Oh, that's
He
cool.
went to Notre Dame, and he's coaching there now at Notre Dame. But
Hockey?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
He's coaching hockey at Notre Dame
Yeah, yeah,
now.
he played there, and I played against him in college, and then he's a captain there, and then he's coaching there now.
Oh, very cool.
But yeah, I mean, he played in the league at 16 too, and he struggled for his first 2 years, and he went to Notre Dame and he turned into a hell of a hockey player. So,
That's
um,
crazy.
yeah,
Wow.
It's
So
awesome.
as far as like skill development, I don't know if you can kind of bucket like there's like hard skills, soft skills, like IQ, et cetera.
yeah,
Like if what are some of the things that you think players at the younger ages is there anything they should focus on more and they have got time on their side to kind of develop other things, or what are the things that like if you don't really I don't want to say get good necessarily, but if you don't put in the time earlier on, it's hard to catch up later.
yeah,
If there are any
Skating.
things, I mean, that's the first thing
yeah,
that comes to my mind, obviously.
yeah,
But just be beyond that, like I don't know, let's just take either hockey IQ or even just like shooting accuracy or physicality. Like,
yeah.
are some of those things like easier to catch up on later, versus what are some of the things that are much better served to like figure out earlier?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. I've talked about this before, to parents, but I think the thing that really goes like underlooked, or I don't know if that's the right word to say it, but I don't think kids nowadays watch the game.
They don't.
Uh,
100%.
what I mean by that is like when I was younger, and I don't know if you guys are football fans, or if you whatever sport you liked growing up, but it could not have been hockey, or it is hockey. But I remember like when I was growing up, like I like like I'd come home and I watch games.
Yeah,
And like your different times, obviously now with phones and Instagram and all that shit. But
Mhm.
a lot of kids are just looking at the skill component, which is
totally.
great. There's a place for it. But I don't think there's many people that really watch the game. And we always say like you want to be a bigger student of the game, because it makes you a better player. But like for example, like I don't love when kids are always like, well, like what type of player do you model your game after? And they're like, well, like I like Jack Hughes, or like like McDavid or Crosby, and it's like you hear them say those names, and it's like, okay, well, they're the 1 in 10, right? One every
Right.
10 years, the generational. Let's start somewhere else. Let's start with like a Matthew Nyes on Toronto, or let's start with like a I don't know who else I played with growing up, or played against growing up, but like those types of players. I loved Ryan Callahan when I was younger. I
Mm,
thought he did everything right. He played hard. I'd say like he played the game the right way. I think that's the one thing that really kids miss. I think skating is gigantic in the game now. If you can't skate, you can't play.
Mm.
You can develop your shot, you can develop your hands, you work on those things, you can develop skating. But it gets harder as you get older and you get bigger and you get more fitted into your body to really continue to develop on your skating.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I think, if you could do, 15 minutes before every practice, if you're on the ice and work on your edges, work on your stride, those things it'll help you so much when you get older and you start to grow into your body. I think it's the most important piece probably of the game, but to develop IQ, like I said, there's not enough kids that just sit down and just really watch hockey.
Yeah, you mentioned something earlier, and I was the same when I was a kid. I was always on rollerblades.
Yeah.
It was just a different time in the mid '90s trying to
Yeah,
play
yeah.
ice hockey, and so rollerblades. I'm so old that I remember when rollerblades came out.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. I
let's.
mean, they're great now. My dad got me when I don't remember what it was, so during COVID or something, he
Yeah,
bought home a pair of rollerblades or something, and I've used them like 10 times probably total,
yeah,
but they're way better now. I mean, I've watched
Yeah.
videos of guys play and these guys stop on a dime and I'm like, these guys are
totally.
unbelievable.
But like in terms of like skating development, there's total transfer of skill set there,
Yeah.
like from roller to ice, right? Like would you agree with that, or
Yeah, oh yeah. I think those Mars blades, there's a reason why all those guys use them. I
yeah,
think they kind of died out a little bit.
Mhm.
I think they were really big because of COVID and people were inside and they really took that time to promote it and they did a really good job with it.
Yep.
But I think it's still a really great way to get better. It's a completely different feel. They're heavier. They get you stronger physically. The puck slides differently. It's a whole new game. I remember I took a couple years off and I played in a roller hockey tournament, maybe my sophomore year in college, and I hadn't played roller hockey since before junior probably. And I was like, oh, I should be really good, play college and
Right.
fooled by all these guys.
It's almost like a totally different game.
Guys are tooling me around out there, and I was just like, Jesus, it's a different game. But yeah, it's an incredible skill set to be really good at that. That's why you see guys Bedard, who played roller in the summers,
Right.
and those guys and Ken Johnson and those videos, you get a lot better from that.
Yeah, because we always hear people about talking to at the rink, teammates, parents, and whatever, and it's always what clinic, power skating, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But no one's talking about where you go in rollerblading, and not to say that it's the equivalent, but it's just I never hear people talking about practicing their skating skills.
Yeah.
Via rollerblades,
that's it's a fun way too. It's different.
Yeah.
You don't have to always be on the ice to do it. You can do it at any point,
Right.
which I think is great. I think it's probably not used as much as it should be, but yeah, it's a great way to get better.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to take this in another direction. Just I'm curious to hear some thoughts. What is the most hostile building you've ever played in or coached in?
Hostile building I ever played in.
I'm assuming this is a college, or maybe not. Actually, I take that back.
When I was my first year in the USHL, it's a different feel in junior than it is in college, right? The student sections are really cool, but you're older, so you're kind of used to it at that point, and you don't really notice it as much. You look up in Wisconsin and you see, I don't remember what the name of their student section is, but it's right behind our goal. And they get a ton of fans that show up and a ton of students that show up. And, Minnesota was pretty similar and so is Michigan. Michigan was probably the hardest place to win in. But
Yost?
Yeah, we went 0-7 there. We didn't win one time 4 years there.
Oh shit.
Yeah, but my personal thing when I was younger, we played in Lincoln in the USHL. That was a tough place to play.
Really?
The fans are nuts. Their teams are really tough, real tough. And that was a hard building to go into and play in. That's the hardest building I've went in and played in. It's by far. They're lunatics. I mean, their scratches get beers poured on them and stuff. It's
wow.
Yeah, they're
That's
serious.
something.
They're serious fans over there.
It's like young blood.
Yeah, they're nuts. It's crazy. College is probably Yost though. Yost was a tough place to play.
Michigan,
Really hard
yeah.
place to
Yeah, yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, we went, the year that we won the Big Ten, we actually got swept in their building before we played the tournament, and then we played them the first game of the tournament, and we beat them. So we just
Oh,
couldn't win in that rank. It's just unbelievable.
wow.
Yeah,
That's
That's
so
wild.
interesting.
yeah.
Dominic still talks about your Big Ten ring that you showed him.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's pretty cool. I have it with me still here. I take it with me everywhere.
I'm sure you do, as you should.
Yeah,
All right, I got another good one. Give me
sure.
the craziest hockey parent story, dad or mom, doesn't matter, from either coaching or playing days. The craziest hockey parent story.
I mean, there's been a few where cops have been called.
No. Wow.
Trying to think, craziest. I mean, I don't know. Uh, I try to remember a lot when I was younger, but um, I don't know what the craze would be. Couple objects flying from the stands.
Yeah,
Uh,
sounds about right.
yeah. I don't know what the craziest one would be.
No parents tried to get on the ice or anything like that.
Oh, no parents trying to get on the ice. Few parents waiting for coaches after games to let
Yeah.
them know and throw a couple jabs. But I don't know, when you get old, when you from coaching, I haven't seen anything really that bad.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, like I think coaching where I did and with who I did was a big part of it.
I
Um,
think that's true.
but I honestly like nothing really that like some of the stuff I see from some of it is just crazy to me.
Amazing.
It's just you're too invested in it. It's like give it a rest. It'll be okay. Kids are 10 years old.
Yes.
They'll be all right.
Well, let me ask this though. But have you not taken players on any of your team because of the family
Um, there's
or
been
or
yeah,
parents?
there's definitely been players that we haven't taken because of parents before for sure.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, culture is really important. It turns into a distraction.
Yep.
It's you feel for some of the kids, but also too like I get it, like your parents want like they want it for you.
Uh-huh.
But there's definitely a time where you need to take steps back.
Sure. And
But
and
yeah,
those
there's definitely been times.
and those parents or families, like what does that look like? Just like parents that like won't leave you alone, that just are like negative amongst like the other
Yeah,
families
I
that are on the
mean,
team.
Yeah, I mean, you use the term like cancerous sometimes, like,
Yeah.
they're not,
Toxic.
they're, yeah, it's toxic, right? Like it gets
Yeah.
to the point where like, you're just hearing it every weekend and, like, it's like, the team's not doing well and you're just tired of it. Like
Right.
they're 13, 14, 15-year-old kids. Like they don't know any better. They just want to go play with their buddies and they want to have a good time. And, winning's a bonus. And all of
Yeah.
them are happy when they win, regardless of how much they play.
Sure.
And it is what it is, but that'll never change. That'll always be that way.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think that's
Yeah,
true.
unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else? So I'm just looking at as a coach. We had a high school coach on a couple
Sure.
weeks ago, a buddy of
Couple
Yeah.
weeks.
mine.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
what? And had a few kind of like rapid fire questions for
Sure.
him. And Jim is going to go for a few. Have you ever had to cut a kid whose parent was a friend, or maybe you're not
Um,
old enough at that yet?
I don't think I'm old enough for that yet.
Yeah.
Luckily, Dominic
Fair.
didn't have to play for him.
Yeah, I mean, I will say I don't know, I've made good relationships with all the kids that have families that I've coached.
Yeah.
I make it pretty important that I'm involved with the families, because, this is such a commitment that if they're not hearing from you and you're not having those conversations frequently, then, they're not as engaged and they're not as involved. But, I'm not yet for me.
Yeah.
Hopefully not ever.
Yeah. No. All right. So next one is, what's the hardest conversation you've had as a coach?
Definitely cutting kids is hard.
Yeah.
It's not easy. I've been there as a player, so I know how it feels. They're tough conversations. But also, I try to make sure that they understand the reasoning why. And sometimes it's just the way it is. Sometimes, you may just not be good enough. But most of the time it's just because you want kids to go to places and play. Like I've had some really good teams that I've coached, But you want kids to go to places where they're going to play.
Yeah.
And if I don't want kids ever to, feel like they're, especially at these ages where I was coaching, that like you're getting their development hindered because they're not getting, regular ice time.
Right.
And that's kind of a lot of the problems that you run into. And like I said, I think at the very beginning, like I've had conversations with parents at tryouts where I'm just like, look, like come back in a year, like go play in a place where you're going to be the best player, and you're going to come back and your kid's going to develop more than some of the kids that I'm coaching right now because they're not going to get it.
Right.
And it's going to benefit them in the long run. And I think there's something to be said to have those hard conversations, but they're never fun. But most of the time when you have an honest conversation with the people, they understand it.
Yeah, and before I ask the next rapid fire question, so it's going to be not so rapid, but
Yeah.
just a question about, so in from your time as a coach and seeing like the younger ages, both Jamie and I, our kids have played tier one. My
Yep.
son like went down to tier two this year. Jamie's son last year, but in terms of like that. We talked about the dilution of tier, like a lot of the orgs and the number of tier one charters, but just like kind of like what's your, for any parents that might be concerned about like you had just said, you want your kid to go on a team where they're going to get playing time or be the best player at some point for
Yeah.
confidence, etc. But like going down from tier one to tier two, I think that might be a tough pill for parents to swallow.
Yep.
Have you had experiences where you've had kids coming up from tier two to one of your tier one teams, and is that jump, like is that something that it might seem impossible to some parents, like if they go down they'll never get
Yeah.
back up? Like what would you say to any parent that
Uh,
feels that way?
I coached 3 years with the '09 birth group. Every year I've taken a kid from a double A team.
Yeah.
And it's I think it's overlooked because everyone is trying, and I'm not saying that we were reinventing the wheel by doing it. I think it's overlooked because everyone just chases the super team status and as many good players as you can on one team when there's, in New Jersey, there's so many players. There's so many good players and kids get hidden away. And some kids are really good players that play tier two just because they can't afford tier one, or they play
Right.
tier two because the hockey's not that serious for them yet. And then, they get the first taste of it and they realize, the families, that their kids are pretty good hockey players. And this is something that they really want to start getting into and really take seriously.
Right.
And I've had some really good players that I've taken from tier two.
Right.
And they've turned out great and they're great kids. And the best part about it is that, for the most, like for all of them, like the families are super appreciative.
Right.
And they love the opportunity and they understand that where their kid is, and they just, they're happy that their kid's involved and they can be involved. And I've met some great people from it. And I think it's really important. I think it gets a little bit overlooked, but yeah, 100%.
Awesome. All right, so back to rapid fire. So
Yep.
what's the one thing that you've gotten wrong as a coach but learned from?
One thing that I've gotten wrong as a coach, but I've learned from. Um, that's a great question. One thing that I've gotten wrong as a coach, but I've learned from. Um,
Or in the process of getting better of, to
yeah.
reframe it potentially?
Yeah, I think the one thing I've learned, is that, and we kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, but the best players aren't always the right players. And that you need the culture, that culture matters. And I think that's something that, from where I've played and I know that, but when you're playing in my first few years at it, coaching younger teams, like you want to always find the best players possible, of course. But that doesn't mean they're the right ones. And I've had some good players that I've actually, let go of over the time because I've realized that, what we're doing is not for them. So, I think that's something that's a learning lesson for a lot of people, is that you can get 20 great players, but there's one puck out there. So I think that's something I'm still learning too now with, Hobart being a great program too, is, we're looking for the right guys as well.
Awesome. All right, well, those were my rapid fire questions.
So
James, what do you got to follow up?
I'm gonna add to your rapid fire.
Go ahead. Shoot away.
If you had one piece of advice to give to a 10-year-old Alec Marsh,
Yep.
what would it be?
Enjoy it. Goes by fast.
Right? No,
Yeah,
that's great.
enjoy it.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, the one thing that you miss when you don't play anymore is just being in the locker room every day.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff you really miss. Like we say it all the time, like you're not gonna the wins and the losses, like you're going to remember that. And, that stuff's funny, but it's the 20 other hours outside of it every day when you're with your buddies that you don't realize. And, you don't realize that it is just a game. And it's fun and it should be fun. So, just enjoy it as much as you can.
Nice. All right. And what are the prospects for Hobart this year?
Prospects?
Yeah. What's the, obviously, you guys won a championship last year, right? I'm assuming a repeat is kind of the goal.
Yeah. I mean, we've won 3 in a row here.
I didn't realize it was 3 in a row. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
That's
Crazy.
awesome.
So I got some tough shoes to fill here.
I see that.
This year, but Mark Taylor, who's the head coach, he's been here for a long time. He's an awesome guy. Learning a lot from him.
Nice.
He's really well respected in what he does, and he does a really good job. And he's another guy too that just like preaches culture, and that's how winning foundations are made. And that's why they've been fortunate enough to have 3 in a row. The pressure's on for 4, obviously, but take it a day at a time. Just get 1% better every day.
That's
the
awesome.
idea, dude. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Awesome.
I can't wait to hear this tomorrow morning.
Yeah, absolutely. No, this is great.
We're gonna have to have you on again, dude. Especially
when the season's over or somewhere halfway through the year, we'll do it again.
All right,
Yeah.
I like it, man.
Awesome.
Again, Alec, thank you, bud. This was
Best of luck with everything.
Great, man. We'll talk to you soon, buddy.
I'll talk to you guys.
All right, take it easy.
See you, Alec. Later, bud.
Bye.
See you, pal. Right? And we are back from our interview with Alec Marsh. I mean, need I say more?
Dude, that was awesome.
Guy's fucking all. He's a rock star.
Yeah, solid.
He's got a lot of really cool insight. I hope that was helpful for all of our listeners. Maybe to get a little, little information on juniors and college and pro, and what college coaches look for, right?
One of the things I've been thinking about since is that like we talk often about like being positive, right? And I don't want to talk out of both sides of my mouth, right? But like being positive, like not necessarily being like beating your kid over the head, like the car ride home.
Yeah.
Like maybe you don't have to say anything. And he was like, I knew it when I played well, and I knew it when I didn't. And
he's 100% right. Our kids know.
No, I know.
Yeah.
I understand that, but I think what started coming up for me or bubbling up is that I guess I get concerned that I'm trying to be overly positive, which takes away from being giving him like being direct. You know what I mean? And I don't lie to him. Like I'm talking about Otto at this point. Like I don't lie to him. Like the other day, like I didn't think he played well, and he knew I was upset, and I didn't. But I also didn't like hit him over the head with it, and maybe that's sufficient. You know what I mean? And when I say hit him over the head with it, it's not like we got in the car and I said this, that, this, that. You know what I mean? It was more of like just silent, and like he knew I wasn't happy, right?
Yeah.
So maybe that's just enough. You know what I mean? But like just listening to him, clearly he's been a high achiever, and everyone is, people are all cut from different cloths. But, I think I just want to say that despite our conversations about like being positive and all that stuff, it doesn't mean you can't be, let your kid know that they didn't have a good game. Right. Like it doesn't mean just, you need to omit it. Right. Like maybe it's just not in the car ride home afterwards. And maybe it's like
24-hour rule, maybe.
Yeah. Like the 24-hour rule. Yeah. And like, and maybe we've said these
like
things, and I guess I just wanted to make sure that, that there is a time and place for that negative constructive feedback. And I think for what we try to do is talk more about like how we deliver that as opposed to like, we're not saying don't deliver that information. You know what I mean? Am I right on that, James? Or like,
well, I see what you're saying. Listen, I think Alec mentioned during the interview, like his dad was stern.
Stern.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
I think that's the word he used was stern. And he also said, like, your kid knows when you're not happy. He knows when he didn't play well. Piling it on is listen, it's tough.
It's tough. And I'm saying all this because I had a hard time with it this weekend. And I go back and forth on this emotional roller coaster of like seething and like being super upset and being frustrated. And then and then it's like, what do I do with those feelings? And
Phone a
I think
friend.
that's what I've been trying to work on. What?
Phone a friend.
Phone a friend? Yeah, no, but I mean, like, look, for real, that helps because
I know
sometimes
it
like
does.
our
Yeah.
insanity is not rooted in like things that are
Logic,
right? Like it could be
it's just
other stuff, right?
emotions. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but like at the same time, it's like I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just basically saying in a lot of unnecessary words that it's hard.
Listen, it's not. I mean, I think you say a lot of the times it's simple but hard, right? I
Simple but
mean,
not easy. Yeah, same
sorry,
thing.
simple
Yeah,
but
yeah.
not
No, no,
easy.
no. But
Right,
yeah, same
right.
thing. Same
Yeah.
thing.
It's hard to check your emotions, especially when you have a lot invested in it,
Yeah,
like we do as parents. It's hard.
yeah,
So I think, the way Alec described his dad was, stern, I think is appropriate. I think it's a good way to kind of, and listen, there's probably a time and place to lay that on your kid, right? Um, I'm not sure if there's one size fits all, but
no,
my
no,
guess is that, when they're feeling shitty, in the car ride home, maybe not the best time to kind of unload on them at that moment.
sure.
Sometimes it's better when later on, when the emotions have died down, it's probably a more productive time to have a conversation,
Yeah, well put. Better put
right?
than my ramble.
Right? I do. And listen, I could just speak for my child. I talking to him in the car ride on the way home is not good.
Right.
It doesn't. He's not happy. It's always better later on after like a hug and a high five and like, hey, listen, bud, you'll get him next time. Don't be so hard on yourself, type stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Even though sometimes we want to blow our stack, you gotta again,
Keep
simple
it in
but
check.
not easy.
Yeah.
You know,
So anyway,
yeah,
super interview. Hope to have him
yeah,
on again.
yeah. Me
And
too.
I'm looking forward to watching his team play.
Yeah, Hobart
For sure.
Statesman, man. Yeah,
Yeah, no doubt.
yeah. They're 4-peat is not easy, dude.
Once I'm sure isn't easy. Twice, three.
yes, yeah, literally. So I didn't realize they were going. I thought they were going back to back. I was wrong. They're going for a
Yeah.
4-peat. So
Well, they're not so college is on the horizon. We've got NHL has kicked off, dude.
yes,
NHL
it
switching
has.
gears a little bit preseason.
Yep.
I've seen a little bit here and there.
Same.
But I think the most exciting thing is that it's back, right? And
It
it's
is back.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's a
yeah,
lot of go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I think this season starts, if I'm not mistaken, in the first or second week in October.
Yeah,
Does
it's
that
like
sound right?
October, is it
Like
8th or
7th,
3rd
8th,
or
something like that. Yeah, I know. It's. I think you're absolutely right. It's something like that. And Luke Hughes still is not signed by the New Jersey Devils. Way to go, guys! Way to go.
October
Not
7th,
sure
Tuesday.
what they're doing. Yeah.
Oh, well, how about this? You got there's 3 games. We got St. Louis versus Seattle, 4:30 Eastern.
This is
Got
the kickoff games. The
Yeah,
first.
opening night. Opening night.
Okay.
Then you have Boston, Florida. Let's go, Brad Marchand.
In Florida or in Boston?
Florida.
Okay, nice.
And then you have Blackhawks, Utah. Oh, this is interesting. This is a mess up. This still says Utah Hockey Club on
Aren't they the
Mammoth.
the Mammoths now? Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like a mess up on ESPN.
I got to tell you, I much prefer the Utah Yeti.
Yeah, but they couldn't do it.
I know, but yeah, I much prefer it.
Well, find the suggestion box.
Exactly. A lot of fucking good that's gonna do me.
Yeah, well, yeah, this is gonna do 0 good.
0.
Yeah, 0.
But yeah, no. Oh, so that's interesting that they're playing on opening night. Okay.
Yeah,
listen.
3 games, 4:30 Eastern, 7 Eastern, and then 10 p.m. Eastern.
Okay, that's
time.
cool. I like that.
Let's go giddy
like that.
up.
I'm assuming the Utah game is the late game.
Yes. And look, dude, you saw Kachuk's out, Matthew, out until like December, it looks like.
I did not see that.
Yep.
He just did college game day the other day.
Yeah,
on
but
Saturday.
he definitely didn't do that while playing hockey. He's out until like December.
No shit. What happened to him? I did not see that.
I think he's still recovering from the injury sustained from 4 Nations.
Oh, his groin? He's still banged up?
Torn adductor.
Something like that, right?
Some stuff. But yeah, December is what they were saying.
Oh, no shit. I did not hear that.
Yeah, so he's out for a hot minute.
Oh, that's a bummer. I did not realize that. That's going to be interesting if they can actually like hold the line while he's getting better, pretty sick roster, though. I mean, shit.
Yeah.
Even when he's not in the roster, even when he's not
that's the thing,
right? Gotcha.
So he's not going to be there on opening night, and for a couple of weeks thereafter.
Yeah, I see that.
But yeah, no, look, who's what are the what I see the other day that was an exciting game? The was it the Penguins game?
Rangers Devils?
No, I didn't watch. You watched?
You don't want to watch, trust me.
Okay.
Yeah. Devils are not, even though they're all young kids, you know what I mean, that are playing.
Yeah.
It didn't look good.
I think it was like Pittsburgh, Montreal went to a shootout. That was exciting.
I need to go YouTube the highlights there. I didn't see that. Meanwhile, I'm like a closet Montreal Canadiens fan.
You're not the only one.
A lot of young talent there, man. Like
no doubt.
A lot of young talent.
Yep.
You know.
We
need to do our picks.
We need to do our picks. Maybe we'll do that next episode.
Before this, yes, we're gonna do our.
Or it doesn't have to be, but
that's a good idea, because then the following episode we're gonna have my buddy Ben DeBlock on, who's a very funny bastard.
Ben,
very funny bastard. So look forward. Not episode 34, but 35. We're gonna have Ben on. He is a very interesting hockey dad. Crazy, like I said, he's a crazy bastard. You guys are gonna like him. Yeah. Yeah,
sweet.
He'll be fun. Yeah.
What else? What else to kind of tidy up this episode? Anything?
I think that's really it. I think that's really it, man. I hope everybody enjoyed our interview with Alec Marsh.
Yeah.
I think you guys are going to get a
lot
of good
at this point.
Well, right, but I think moving forward, you're going to take what he said, and if you pay attention to it, I mean, he lays out a lot of really, really smart things for kids, developmental wise. Mental wise, I love the story about his father making him run the last mile to his buddy's house. That was fucking phenomenal.
That was good.
Like, I'm totally gonna have to drop Dominic off a mile away from the house and have him fucking run home.
That's awesome. Oh, so good.
Yeah. So yeah, man, it was an awesome interview. I'm glad we did it. Look forward to our picks and some good interviews moving forward. Thank you to our new listeners. Thank you to everybody who's writing into us. Yeah, man. It's
all right. Well, I think that's a wrap, dude.
Here we go. I like it, bud. So I'll see you in the next episode.
That's it.
All right, bud.
All right. Take it easy.
Later, homeboy.
Later.
See ya.